So my question is on Iran. Well, on March 14th, you have stated on your Twitter account, I guess Hugh Pope, the author of Dying with a Fighter was used, that only 25%...
It's going to go far, I think.
So only 25% of Americans support a possible war with Iran, based on a poll. And moreover, recently Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Obama have met concerning the nuclear program of Iran. You also have stated you also have stated your concerns on in heavy waters, Iran's nuclear program, the risk of war, and lessons from Turkey. So at what point do you think this tension between Iran and the West will start to decrease? Or at what point do you think this tension will burst? And eventually, in case of any war, what would be the magnitude of this war? So like, would it be like the war with Iraq, or a huge war? I don't know.
Things looking better this week. It looks like the Iranians are crying uncle and saying they'll come and talk. You know, the meeting will be in Istanbul. And the outlines of the settlement are fairly clear. That Iran has to be more open, admit what it did in the past, and promise to be a better global nuclear citizen in the future. And the West, or the P5+1, which is with China and Russia, has to say, okay, what you did in the past is in the past. We accept your promise to be better, and that you will be better, and we will also allow you to research and enrich uranium up to 3 to 5%, which is quite far from a bomb. So that would be, and the Americans and the Iranians would also talk at the same time about solving that one, because the actual, the venom in the relationship comes from the paranoia, mutual paranoia between America and Iran. And that's deeply ingrained and very difficult to deal with. Okay, let's say, I think it seems like Obama is winning the argument at the moment, and that one suspects that he wants a negotiated solution. You cannot imagine an American president who would want a third Middle Eastern war with an even bigger country, with even more difficult to attack. And also, I personally believe that all this stuff that Israel keeps rattling everyone's chains about, that's not an English expression, is it? Anyway, it keeps shouting about, is probably a bluff. Netanyahu is not a man who usually commits soldiers to war, but he's a big talker. And it works. It's fantastic. You know, if you're Israel, you go up to Germany, you go boom, and Germany jumps around, says, "Oh, I'll do anything you say." And that's what literally Israel says. If you don't do this, we'll attack. And Germany, even though they know sanctions, which they're being asked to do, won't make much difference. Although today, on Saturday, Iran is not going to be able to make any bank transfers anymore. But there are tough sanctions, but still, no one thinks that will actually, it's not the sanctions that will change things. It's a belief in Iran that the United States does not want to change their government. That's the main thing that will change the Iranians' perspective. So I think that because the Israelis, if they attack, it's suicidal, not suicidal for them, but you know, they will be damaged. What would a war look like? It would be very nasty, because it's almost certain that once the Israelis start, or the Americans start, it will bring in the Americans. The American battle plan is for weeks of bombing. You can't just sort of go in and sort of bomb one of these bases. First, you have to take out the air defense systems. That means bombing lots of stuff, including, and probably bombing the power stations too, okay, because bombing a lot of things. And even when you're going to do something like the Tehran Research Reactor, that's a nuclear institution, you're going to bomb things in Tehran. I mean, these are civilian sections. Now, Americans can bomb incredibly accurately. I've seen it with my own eyes, but still, it's going to take weeks, it's going to be bloody, and then you're going to have weeks in which we're going to see what Iran is going to do in response. We don't know what they'll do. And then that could bring a regional dimension. Might bring in Hezbollah and Israel, could bring something on the Strait of Hormuz. nobody knows, and no one wants to risk it really. And let's hope the world will be sensible.
Okay, we have 3 questions that are a bit connected, so I'll start with mine. You said the West Coast's tough sanctions will compel Iran to compromise, but it is as likely that Tehran will instead lash out. In addition, you said Turkey cannot solve a 3-decade-old crisis of confidence between Iran and the US. So how can NGOs like the one you work with, the International Crisis Group, convince the US government as well as the Iranian government to start compromising when we are aware of how obstinate and aggressive their policies have been? What are the key arguments you would point out to the government?
Well, what's funny in the case of Iran, it's not the government that is the problem, it's the political scene. It's Congress who has this paranoid view of its Muslims, firstly. Iran is Muslim, so one strike against Iran. It's looking for nuclear power, it's trying to be a big power and you can strike 2, it's aggressive towards Israel, strike 3. There are the Israeli lobby in America is gunning for Iran completely. And they do that through the political sphere. State Department people I meet, the kind of chat rooms we go on with ex-State Department people and researchers that all think like us. We don't have to persuade them. But this time last week, I was, at exactly this time, after a lunchtime speech to 25 people in Congress, trying to persuade them that a war would be tremendously counterproductive. You will not manage to do anything except delay the program. And they have to support talks with Iran. And they have to, going into those talks, they have to be clear that they have to tell the Iranians and make the Iranians believe that they do not want to change the government there. And also that they will allow the Iranians to, if they want to be a nuclear power, they obey all the rules of being a nuclear power. Being a nuclear power means having nuclear energy, if not having nuclear weapons. That they can do that in good faith. But the trouble is that the average American politician cannot do that because Israel is so against it. And actually, the problem also has to be solved with Israel too. Israel is completely paranoid because the Iranians are basically very weak, but they know that they can completely wind up the Israelis every time they say horrible stuff. And they probably also mean it. So it's not that they want to do another Holocaust, but they definitely would like to defeat Zionism. Because it sells well. So you have political parameters on both sides. I'm sure that the Iranian foreign ministry feels like the American foreign ministry. God, let's get over this. So it's not our problem is not the government as crisis group. It's the political context that for us that's almost impossible to address. We put out our reports with the argument saying, guys, you're acting crazily, but we don't. That's a really long term thing. Yeah, it's really
So you also said from your paper in Heavy Waters that if the West doesn't come up with a realistic offer for Iran that's, again, reasonable for both sides, there might be war in the future. Well, do you think that Turkey can contribute to this resolution due to its geopolitical condition? And the second part of the question is, when, as you said, Iran's been trying to cooperate so far, since I just learned that, but do you think that, what do you think would be the move that would have ticked Iran off, like a political move by the West during its time of, I don't know how to put it, but...
What do you mean tick off Iran?
As in, Iran's like dog on a lash. They've been aggressive. They haven't been cooperating with the West so far. So what would make them really, really angry? I mean, by the West.
If you didn't talk to them at all and ignored them, it would make them furious.
Your question?
Yeah, obviously they would be seriously, obviously if they were attacked.
Can he break in?
Yes.
Have you been to Iran? You told that
Yeah,
you
lived
worked
there for a year.
And have you ever spoken to any Iranian authorities or
Yes.
the government? And
Oh, I know them well.
Can you?
I've been expelled from Iran twice.
Can you just tell us some experiences? Some experiences. Can you share with us? On the issue, of course.
Of what ticks them?
Or what Iran takes, actually.
Okay. All right. Let me do the Turkish thing first. I think Turkey has a quite realistic approach, usually, in which it thinks, right, we can't really dictate what the Iranians think. We've known them for centuries. They're introverted. They see themselves as our rival. And we will continue to work with them to the necessary degree. As the Turkish expression goes, we will keep calling the bear uncle until we get over the bridge. And it's very interesting that 30 years ago, Turkey's economy was half the size of Iran, and now the Turkish economy is double the size of Iran. You don't often get that kind of change in geopolitics. So Turkey's quite well off, and they think that they can turn Iran slowly and by osmosis into a kind of Turkey that they can deal with better. They think that letting 2 million Iranians in every year as tourists will, if not today, then in 10 years' time, create a body of people who know that there's another way than being angry with the world and never, trying to live as an isolated country, which Iran does. Turkey talks about them being able to, them understanding the Iranians better than the Americans and so forth. Well, in some ways they kind of do get Iran better than America because Turkey and Iran are not that dissimilar. On the other hand, I don't think that the Turkish political class has a clue about Iran really, day-to-day details, facts. Whereas in America, there are lots of people who have those facts, but they don't get Iran. So it's a bit of a dichotomy. And in the talks, Turkey has almost nobody in this whole country who is an expert on non-proliferation or nuclear weapons. If there are 12 of them, I don't know them. Whereas in America, there are hundreds of people who are experts on nuclear. Turkey is a second division country at the end of the day. It doesn't seem to have the ambition to be a real first division country. That's the problem. But it's still much better off than Iran, and it hopes to influence Iran. As for